Tears fall over a Highland meal. The reality of Highland life in northwestern Vietnam. Vun Giang, Jack Locke, shared a series of photos depicting the lives of Highland children. These photos quickly gained attention as they vividly portrayed the hardships faced by these children, who are still at the age of playing and eating. The story, as shared by Vun Giang, goes, "What's in their meal? Just cold rice and cicadas." During a survey trip to Mong Thon village in preparation for an upcoming Mid-Autumn Festival program, I happened to come across 4 children cooking cicadas they had just caught for breakfast. They only boiled them, as there was no cooking oil for frying. It was Children's Day, but the kids had no idea what that meant. They didn't know what a cake or candy looked like. I asked them, "Where are your parents?" The children, still not fluent in Vietnamese, could only tell me their parents had gone early in the morning to plant cassava on the hill. The cold rice had been cooked the night before for the children to eat, but there was no other food. Somewhere in this society, there are still many struggling areas and families we would never know about unless we visit these places and witness their lives firsthand. The struggle for survival in remote villages. In the vast expanses of endless mountain ranges, scattered among weathered wooden stilt houses, life in the highlands of Vietnam continues quietly and with great difficulty. The highlands, places that immediately evoke thoughts of harsh weather, barren lands, and especially the impoverished meals of the ethnic minority people. These meals don't just tell a story of scarcity. They are a reflection of pain, hope, resilience, and human compassion. Life here is full of challenges, but also bright with the warmth of human kindness. In highland areas such as Tai Bach, Ha Giang, Son La, Lao Cai, Yen Bai, rice is not the primary staple due to the harsh climate and unsuitable soil. Instead, people rely on corn and cassava, 2 crops that are easy to grow and less affected by unpredictable weather changes. For them, corn and cassava are not just food, but a means of survival, helping them get through freezing winters when snow blankets the mountain peaks, mist lingers, and the cold winds pierce through. The people here work tirelessly from dawn until dusk. The cornfields are on steep mountain slopes, and reaching them requires climbing rocky, rugged, and sometimes vertical paths. For them, corn is everything, the only food they can store to eat during months when food is scarce. Men often leave to work far away, while women stay home to care for children, tend to the fields, and manage the household. However, not every family can afford to send a man away to work, as they may need help at home during the farming season. Their lives are a repetitive cycle of worrying about food, clothing, and finding ways to survive the harsh winters. A meal of men and wild greens. In Dongvon, Ha Giang, there is a family consisting of an elderly man, Mr. Bao, and his 4 young grandchildren. They live in a small stilt house halfway up a mountain, with terraced cornfields spread below. Mr. Bao has lived here since his youth, and now he raises his orphaned grandchildren in a life of hardship. Every day, their meal is typically men, steamed ground corn, served with a few wild greens picked from the hills near their home. Men, a common dish among the Hmong people, might seem unfamiliar to many, but for Mr. Bao's family, it is everything they have. The grandchildren, accustomed to the bland taste of corn, sometimes long for a piece of meat, but such a luxury is rare. On heavy rainy days, Mr. Bao cannot go out to gather greens. During those times, their meal consists only of men mixed with salt, making the food dry and difficult to swallow. Yet, despite the poverty, Mr. Bao always teaches his grandchildren about patience and gratitude. He constantly reminds them, having men to eat is already lucky. Some people don't even have that. Village Meals, Humanity and Hardship. One winter morning in Yen Bai, thick fog blanketed the mountains. In a small village, Mai, a mother of two, prepared breakfast for her family. Their breakfast was nothing more than thin porridge made from dried cassava with a little cold rice from the night before. During these cold winter days, Mai's family had to rely on the remaining cassava in their storage, as going to the market was nearly impossible. Children in the village often walk several kilometers to reach school. On the long, rocky, mountainous path, the children wear thin clothes and worn-out rubber sandals. Many of them eat only a small portion of men or thin porridge for breakfast before heading out. Though hungry and cold, they persist, knowing that education is their only way out of poverty. Despite the difficulties, Highland people live with a spirit of hospitality and unity. A story about a group of tourists who got lost while trekking in Yen Bai serves as a clear example. Mai's family, despite their own hardships, welcomed the visitors into their home and shared their meal. That meal, consisting of men, some boiled wild greens, and a small piece of dried meat, was full of warmth and sincerity. Highland students' efforts amid hardship. Not only adults, but Highland children also face numerous challenges. On their way to school, Hmong, Dao, Thai, and Thai ethnic students must cross dozens of kilometers of treacherous mountain paths and icy streams during winter. Rain or shine, they persist, carrying with them the hope of a brighter future. In temporary shelters near their schools, the children cook their own meals. Their food mostly consists of corn mixed with rice, sometimes supplemented with wild greens or dried fish. On lucky days, they might have a bit of meat, but more often, their meals are very basic. Despite this, the children always share with one another, ensuring that no one goes hungry. One touching story involves Lia Sang, a fifth-grade student at a Highland school in Lao Cai. His family was so poor that he only brought a small handful of cassava mixed rice for lunch each day. Instead of keeping it for himself, Song shared his food with another classmate whose family was even worse off. This act, almost unimaginable to adults, was simply how the children lived, sharing and caring for one another. Faith and hope. Despite the scarcity of Highland meals, they always carry immense spiritual value. In each simple meal, whether it's men, wild greens, or just some roasted salt, Highland people live with a spirit of gratitude and sharing. They understand that no matter how difficult life gets, they still have the love of family, the unity of their community, and hope for a better future. The poor students, though facing many hardships in their pursuit of knowledge, always hold on to their faith. It is through these efforts and hopes that the Highlands never succumb to adversity. Each of those meager meals tells not just a story of poverty, but a valuable lesson about resilience, love, and sharing between people. Amid the darkness of Highland life, those simple meals shine with the light of human kindness. They remind us that no matter where we are or what circumstances we face, people always find ways to overcome hardships with love and compassion. Those meals, filled with tears from poverty, also nourish hope for a brighter future, where every child has enough to eat and can attend school. The story of a meal of cornflour mixed with cassava. Mai, a young mother living in a remote village in Zhejiang, recounted the days of long rains that caused landslides, blocking roads and cutting off access to markets. Her family of 5 was left with only a few kilograms of corn and dried cassava at home. Every meal, Mai had to mix cassava with corn, boil it, and divide it equally among her children. The corn was tough, and the cassava was dry, but that was all they had to fill their stomachs. After eating, the children often complained of thirst because the meal was difficult to swallow. For several consecutive days, the family only had cassava-mixed corn with a little roasted salt. Salt was a precious commodity, as it added flavor to their otherwise bland meals. The repetition of these meals began to take a toll on the children's health, making them increasingly weak and thin. However, Mai could do nothing more, as her husband's meager earnings from laboring were not enough to improve the family's situation during the rainy season. Meals without meat or fish, Lao Kai. Ha Du-yan, a Hmong mother in Lao Kai, recounted the difficult days when her husband went away to work, leaving her at home to care for their 2 young children and tend to the small plot of land behind their house. Every meal consisted of corn-mixed rice with boiled greens. Meat or fish rarely appeared on the family's table, and if they did, it was only during holidays or when her husband managed to send some money home. She remembered one time when her eldest son asked, "Mom, when will we have meat to eat again?" The question left her speechless. It had been over 2 months since the family had eaten anything but corn and greens, and even basic condiments like fish sauce or cooking oil were luxuries. She tried to explain the family's struggles to her son, but deep down, she felt heartbroken at being unable to provide a proper meal for her children. A winter meal, mu kang chai, yen bai. Tai, an elderly man from Mu Kang Chai, Yen Bai, recounted a harsh winter many years ago. That winter was so cold that snow covered the mountains, roads were frozen, and daily life came to a standstill. His family, living in a small house roofed with palm leaves, had no food stored because the floods had washed away their rice after the harvest. For days, the family survived on thin porridge made from the little dried cassava they had left after the floods. The meal wasn't enough to fill their stomachs, but it was all Tai and his wife could provide. His children, cold and hungry, couldn't attend school and huddled around the fire for warmth. Every time he looked at his children shivering, Tai swallowed his tears and promised himself he would work even harder once spring came, so they wouldn't have to endure another winter like that. Hospitality amid a meager meal. A group of tourists, lost while trekking in the mountains of Yen Bai, found their way to a small Hmong family in a remote village. Despite their own poverty, the family didn't hesitate to invite the tourists into their home and share what little they had. That meal consisted of men, some boiled wild greens, and a small piece of dried pork. Yet it was everything the family could offer at the time. The tourists, used to a life of abundance in the city, felt deeply moved as they sat in the simple home and shared the modest meal. The mother of the family explained that, despite their poverty, whenever guests came, she always wanted to give them the best she could, as hospitality had been part of their tradition for generations. These stories not only reflect the daily struggles of Highland people, but also stand as a testament to their resilience, kindness, and the solidarity they share, even in the most challenging of circumstances.